Good morning and welcome to Cervello Live. We haven't done these for a while. We did quite a lot of these during the pandemic, but I thought it was really important to bring it back. We've got an amazing guest this morning to share his insights. Really excited about having him on. It's Martin. How you doing, Martin? You doing well today?
Hello, Chris. I'm doing really good. Yes, really excited to join you this morning.
Even though I had quite a relaxing weekend, I went for a swim and went to the beach. You've been sort of grafting. You've been working, learning this weekend, haven't you? Tell me a bit about that.
Yes, no, I was in a leadership conference at Harrogate, close to Leeds, from Wednesday evening. So just great time to connect with other leaders, learn, but also catch up with old friends as well. So it was a really, really good learning experience at the conference.
Fab, cool, good stuff. And we'll share some of the insights you learned from that in a little while. First, and if you remember the last Cervello Lives we did, which were a little while ago, we always start with some financial planning tips that you can take away and use and potentially help and support your own financial plan with. I'm going to be sharing some of them. Then we're going to go on to interview Martin, talk about the work he does and talk about the way he helps business leaders. So what I thought, as we're talking about sort of business leadership today and some of the challenges that we face as business owners and leaders, let's talk about specific financial planning tips for leaders of businesses and what they need to consider when they're thinking about this. What's interesting is business leaders are normally really good and really on top of running their own business, having business plans and having clear strategies. And in my experience as a financial planner for quite a few people who run and own businesses, often the bit that gets missed out is their own plan. So they've got a plan for their business, but what's their own individual plan? And how does the business act as a tool to help them achieve their own financial goals? If you don't know who I am, my name's Chris Dames. I'm a chartered financial planner, fellowship of my professional body, so pretty well qualified. Been doing the job for a long time. That's why the wrinkles are there. And basically, my day is spent helping people plan for their financial futures. In particular, we do a lot of work with people who, as I say, run businesses or own businesses who are thinking about what's next. So they've done that for a while and they're thinking about, okay, over the next 10 years, I want to make some changes. Am I financially fit enough to do that? Outside of the day job, the most important job in my world, more important than the financial planning, is dad. And we run our business, Cervello, with the values that I try and teach my kids. So always have fun, and I'm sure that with Martin we're going to have a lot of fun today. Always focus on improvement, and I know we're going to have that conversation, Martin, because we are both focused on just getting a little bit better every day. Fairness, always doing things that are doing the right thing, and do well, do good. So, you know, if you've been lucky in life, like, you know, most of us watching this have, how do we contribute and give back to society a bit? So let's share some tips in terms of what we do and how we help clients. And the first thing you need to focus on, like you would in your leading your business, is strategy first, tactic second. It's really interesting. When we speak to business owners, the business plan sets the strategy, and then effectively the tactics and the things they need to do to achieve that plan. It's no different when you're thinking about your financial plan. What are we looking to achieve? And for a lot of our clients, it's knowing they're never going to run out of money again. It's financial independence they're aiming to achieve. And interestingly, we tend to find that people fit in one of four categories. Firstly, they know they haven't got enough and they need to do something about it. Secondly, and this is very, very rare, they've got a perfect financial plan. No financial plan is perfect, really, where they accumulate wealth, and financial independence means that they're sort of going to run out of money, but likely at the end of their lives. Who's got that plan? Nobody I know. Thirdly, they've got plenty, and actually they know they're never going to run out of money again. But that then generates additional issues, because then the plan becomes less about the money they need and more about efficiently passing money on to their family, kids, stuff like that. The majority of clients who come and see me aren't in one of those three categories. They're in the don't know category. They're in the category where they're not clear on what financial independence means to them, and they're in a position where part of the work that we do with them is just helping work out what financial planning means to them, and what financial independence means to them. Now, the interesting thing about that is we often get people who come to see us who've done okay in terms of building financial independence, because they have been saving money and they have been sort of taking action to build wealth, and that's amazing. But you wouldn't take action in a business without having a clear strategy on where it's going to take you. The same applies to your financial plan. So what is, I suppose, the big questions you want to be asking yourself: what does financial independence mean to you? If you were financially secure, how would you live your life, and what does that look like? If you were never to work again, how much money, how much income would you need every year to make sure you were okay? Now, interestingly, you'll notice I didn't say the words, two words actually, pensions or retirement, okay? Now, there's a reason for that. A lot of the clients who are business owners want to achieve financial independence, but the idea of actually just giving up work forever scares them, because they want to be intellectually and engaged and still have purpose and meaning in their life. Financial independence isn't always about saying, I'm going to give up work. For some it might be, for some that might be what they want to achieve. Financial independence for me and a lot of my clients is about choice, because what you're allowed to do when you know that money is no object is choose what you do with your life, and therefore have the flexibility to say, I'm really going to enjoy that. I'm going to find that intellectually stimulating and challenging. It's got a bit of purpose. I'm going to do it. Or I'm going to say no to that because I don't need the money, and it doesn't speak to me in a purposeful or intellectually challenging way. Now, they're broader, deeper questions that are a bit more difficult sometimes to answer. But let me give you a really good tool. And there's an amazing book that I've literally just finished called Designing Your Life by two Stanford University professors who are design people. Like, one of them worked at Apple, another one worked at Microsoft. They are very sort of design focused. And they've got this really amazing little tool that talks about effectively working out 3 plans for your life. Plan A is, if everything went smoothly, what would your life look like? Plan 2 is, what would be the minimum that you'd want? What would be the minimum? So plan A is the great one. Plan B is what would be the minimum that you'd want as a comfortable, happy life. And then you've got the wildcard element. And the wildcard element is, and I love this question, if you knew money was no object and you knew that nobody would laugh, how would you spend your time? And what that does is take away the financial expectations and that element of societal expectation, because then you can choose exactly what makes you happy. I really, really enjoy that question. And I'd certainly consider factoring that in. Now, there's a few other technical elements that you might want to consider when thinking about the financial plan. And this is particularly pertinent to, so we've talked about the strategy and we've talked about some of the questions you want to ask yourself to build that strategy. I just want to share 3 short tactical tips to make sure that you've got your strategy, but you're also in a position where you're more likely to achieve it. And number 1 is avoiding the tax trap, avoiding the 60% tax trap. And we have this with a lot of clients who fall into this and just don't realize. if you earn over £100,000 a year, you start to lose your personal allowance, and your personal allowance is the bit that you get at the start that effectively you don't pay any tax on. It's about 12,500, 12,600, and you're in a position where you start to lose that as soon as you start earning over £100,000. Now, there's loads of ways, if you're employed or you run a business, to make sure that your earnings are aligned to make sure that you avoid that tax trap. But the important thing is, be aware that if you're earning £100,000 or more a year, you're in a position where actually you start paying 60% tax because you start losing that personal allowance. Really important to be aware of, and actually to take action and do something about. One of the things you can do if you're employed is effectively reduce your salary. Now that seems mad. Why would I reduce my salary? But what you do is you reduce your salary but increase your pension contributions. Now the reason that's beneficial is because immediately, if the money's going into a pension as opposed to going into salary, you've got a 60% win because you're not paying 60% tax on it, but also there's national insurance savings. And if you're really smart about this, and you're in a position where you've got a really generous employer, because the employer saves money in national insurance as well, sometimes they give you their bit, and giving you their bit can then increase your contribution by another 15%. So you're saving potentially 60%, you're getting another 15%. That is certainly worth considering from a tax perspective. Now, you've done this, you're saving money into a pension wrapper, you're doing really well out of it. A lot of the challenges that people face is how do I invest that money for long-term future growth? And one of the big things that I always recommend is keeping it simple. Now, we follow some rules at Cervello in terms of investing clients' money. And the rules are making sure that we keep it simple, but make sure we're following evidence-based investment rules. And that is, again, simple stuff. Keep costs low, spread the investment really widely, so diversify broadly, have a really good balance of shares and bonds, aligned to how much you're comfortable with risk, and don't try to beat the market. The market actually is a pretty efficient way of investing. Now, it's interesting. We have clients who say to us, well, Chris, actually, I get the keep it simple stuff and that works for most people, but actually I wouldn't mind investing in some things that might generate me some greater potential growth. No worries with that at all. I'd recommend that you split that money. So you keep the majority of the money for your core financial plan, for the element of money that you want to achieve financial independence with, as your investment money. And typically that might be 90 or 95% of all of your wealth. If you want to make some decisions that are a little bit different, what you want to be doing is having a speculation pot, a pot that you can play with that doesn't impact your core financial plan, that actually you can just make some decisions and decide if they pay off or not. And that's the way that I'd split it. Majority of the money into the core financial plan to make sure that you achieve that minimum financial goal. And if you do want to invest or potentially speculate on assets that you think are going to do well but don't know, have a small pot of money to do that. Hopefully those tips are useful. What we'd love, and Russ can keep me updated because he's keeping an eye on the socials, but what I'd love is, number one, if there's any future episodes where you'd like me to answer any questions, send them in, because we'd really love to help and support you with the areas of your financial life that you might need help with. But also comment, let us know, talk to us, highlight some of the issues that you might face, and we'll happily include them in future shows. So please feel free to let us know what you'd like us to talk about and how we might be able to share an insight. Thank you for listening to that. I'm going to now start chatting to Martin again, because I'm really interested in what Martin does. Every time we get together, Martin, there seems to be a bit of an energy in the room, right? About books and learning and stuff like that, because we share so much in common in terms of that. I know you, and I've got a lot of time and respect for you, hence why you're on the show. But for our audience who don't, tell us a bit about you.
Well, no, thanks, Chris. I think the feeling is mutual there, right? In terms of just our conversations, it's all based on learning, and but also values match. And thanks this morning, Chris. For I think you've added a lot of value to lots of people on this call, right? So I was just listening to what you're saying, designing your life, the 3 options, how you save on tax, how you invest, really, really valuable information given there. So I certainly learned some things for what you said. Now, in terms of me, so Martin Overare, obviously, Chris, it's just a pleasure to be on this morning.
Thank you, mate. Good to have you.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I run Kenetix coaching and consulting. Primarily what we do is really come alongside people in their own personal journey, whether they are from a personal perspective or from a business perspective, come alongside them and to help them with either performance, but also in improving themselves from a leadership perspective as well. But I guess we'll talk more about that later on.
100%. And tell us a little bit about you. What do you love doing? What do you spend your spare time at? What do you do when you got a bit of spare time?
Yeah, so I absolutely love my family. So I'm a dad, a husband, a dad to 4 kids. So they certainly keep me busy.
That's busy. That's
in
busy
itself.
4 kids. I'd struggle with 2.
Yeah. No, indeed, they keep me really busy. Different personality types, just absolutely love spending time with the kids. In fact, yesterday my daughter, who was at university, came back home, and it was actually my birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Yeah, thank you. She came back home yesterday, so we could spend time as a family. So we went out for dinner, went out for breakfast, and just the best time with the family. So most of my time spent, with family when I've got this free time. I also play basketball. So from time to time, I've got a group of guys where we go together, play basketball together. So love doing those things for fun.
Amazing. No, but if I'm better, I try and keep fit, but my coordination isn't great. So I don't play any ball sports because just badminton. I quite like a game of badminton, but like I will stick with the running and swimming because I can do that without having to have too great coordination. And talk to me a little bit about how you give me an example of how you've helped a client in the past and the work you've done.
Yeah. No, so it's a good question. So let's give you an example. I had a CEO which I was speaking to last November, and what she wanted was just improved communications within her team. So what we did, we came in and looked at what the needs were of our team. She was looking to launch a new product this year, and she wanted to make sure that the team are effective at communicating, but also actually understanding themselves. So what we did, we went with a DISC assessment, which enables you to understand yourself a bit more, understand your strengths and your key communication skills. So we worked with every member of the team one-on-one alongside the CEO to improve that whole area of communication. So we dived into things like how you communicate for impact, but also how the team can work in a collaborative way to ensure that the team is successful. So that's just an example of how we work with the team from a leadership perspective.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think the silo you can get in without doing that sort of work is that you assume that the way that you communicate and understand knowledge is the same way as everybody else does, and that's just not the reality, is it?
Indeed, you're so right, Chris. We all have different styles, and it's actually quite eye-opening when you understand your style. And wow, actually, Chris's style is different from my style. So, you know, we always have this terminology to treat other people the way you would like to be treated, actually, as kind of the golden rule, right? But actually, I do have what is the platinum rule. The platinum rule is actually communicate or treat others in the way they would like to be communicated with, right? So
yeah, gotcha.
when you understand their style and you can communicate more on their style, you connect better with them. And so that's communicating for impact.
Talk to me. It sounds like you use the DISC tool as a way to do that. Why DISC? What insight does that give you, and why do you find it so useful?
I mean, it's a number of people, personal or clients, have done this with. Like, this is like the accuracy of this is crazy, right? Because people are like, how in the world can I answer just few questions and it gives me all this? Yeah. So what it does, it helps you understand your personality style, but it helps you understand your communication style. But the difference between the other aspects of this, I use the Maxwell leadership disc, which also helps you understand your strengths in leadership as well. So it kind of brings that effect as well. So understanding you, how you communicate, and your strengths in leadership. It's so impactful because with business leaders, you start understanding in your team, what strengths do you have in your team? Because we often have various strengths, right? And as a business leader working with your team, it's great for you to understand your strengths, but also understand the strengths of your team. Yeah. So you can position your team in the areas where they can excel. And ultimately, it has a bigger impact on your business.
I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think smaller business owners often get caught in that trap of assuming that they've got to do everything themselves and restrict growth. It's the E-Myth thing, isn't it? Yeah. Restricts. Yeah. Sorry, I mentioned it like everybody knows. E-Myth is an amazing book that I think all business owners, particularly SME business owners, should read, about saying where are you best placed in terms of your skills and knowledge to actually support your business, and how do you get out of the way of some of the other stuff and utilize the skills and strengths of the team to make sure that they're doing some of the jobs that they're going to be really good at. I suppose part of the challenge with that is, and I don't know how you find this in businesses, Martin, if you don't know the skills and strengths of your team, how do you make sure they're sitting in the right seat?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it is really the awareness it creates. And I really have a heart for business leaders. We work hard and try to make the business work, but sometimes, like you say, we get caught up in this, right? Because we don't have the awareness. Actually, a simple tool to create that awareness for you. And you would always get the best out of people if they are working in their areas of strengths.
Yeah.
One of the questions I get asked the most is actually, oh, these are my areas of strength, and these are the areas which are not so good. What can I do to improve that? And I take a step back and say, what could you do to even maximize your areas of strength? And those areas where you don't have, natural strength, who in your team has a natural strength in those areas? Because if they are operating in their areas of gifting or strengths, the impact on your business is even more significant, rather than you trying to lead in that area, get someone else who has natural strengths in that area to lead. And this is one of the ways where you actually improve the productivity of the business, but also the impact and revenue of the business by understanding how people's strengths fit into your
And what's interesting there is we've got the ability to do this even more in the technological age, because if you're in a position where, as a business leader, you've got a role that may not be permanent and full-time, there's a bunch of ways that you can get those tasks done to take it off your list, and it's finding the right balance to do that. As you said, business ownership and leadership comes with its challenges, Martin, and it's a fun. I mean, you know what? I don't know how you feel about it, but I have more fun now than I did when I first became a business owner. The first couple of years, 2 or 3 years, were challenging. but now I have a lot more fun. And the challenges are still there, but I think I've become more resilient and more, again, thinking about some of that stuff about working in your strengths, just doing more stuff that helps and supports people and delegating the rest. But what's the common mistakes you find business owners are making? And certainly I know as a business owner, I make plenty. Common mistakes that business owners make, and what tips have you got to make sure that they can potentially mitigate some of those mistakes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. I think for me, one of the biggest challenges with businesses is the whole area of personal awareness. So awareness of yourself. So it all starts with you. And actually, the people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. So whatever you're doing, it starts with you on how you set yourself, your awareness of your strengths and the areas where you're not so strong on. Because I'll tell you, your team knows the areas where you're not strong on. So if you don't have that self-awareness, it's a big challenge. And we have multiple things we need to think about as business leaders, right? But actually having the awareness of what you're strong at, what your natural strengths and the areas where you're not as strong is a very good place to start, because you can build from that area and understand who you can bring around you in order for you to move forward. Sounds simple, but actually self-awareness is one of the biggest challenges businesses have.
Do you think that takes an element of humility and vulnerability to admit where you might be weak?
It does.
And is that part of the challenge of sort of, I think there's a perception that business owners and leaders have got to be good at everything, and actually the reality is that's not true. So how do you make sure that people are humble and vulnerable enough to make sure they can turn around and go, look, I'm not perfect, but these are the areas I need help with?
I think certainly from a one-to-one coaching perspective, we can create that awareness. But the other area, like we talked about earlier, the whole area of this, where we come alongside the team, and actually we all look at this assessment together. We look at, oh, actually Chris is strong in this area. Martin is strong in this area. Russell is strong in this area, and actually in this area not so strong. And actually that environment, creating an environment where we are all in this together, actually that creates awareness across the team. It's a great way of breaking down those barriers, right? Because we all understand the areas of strength.
It's really interesting. So we did that, Cervello, we did this as a business and as a team a few months ago. And it was really, number one, really accurate, but also really insightful in terms of saying, are we in the right seats, and is it the right fit in terms of the sort of the roles we're doing, and do we need to make any changes to make sure it's more efficient? But yeah, it was a massively insightful thing to do. So number one is be self-aware. What's number two? What other tips of business leadership do you think people need to follow?
The other aspect I would say is the whole area of fixed mindsets versus a growth mindset. So I think from day one, and I know most businesses want to grow and most people have the intention to want to do this, but I call this the law of intentionality, actually being very intentional around creating a growth mindset within the organization. So being flexible about learning, creating a learning culture, but actually having a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. I think that's really, really important, because, the rest of the organization, we follow the lead of the leaders, right? So the leaders are improving themselves, they are reading and actually wanting to grow themselves. It has a ripple effect across the organization. So that's the next thing I would say around a growth mindset.
You know what, I'm 100% with you on that. It's really interesting because Harold Dweck, Growth, and I know we'll have a really good book chat later. Harold Dweck's book on growth mindset, called Mindset, is an amazing read. And Cervello as a business a few years ago sponsored the Havering Literary Festival. And basically, Martin, it was just an excuse for me to talk to authors, because if we were sponsoring it, I got to introduce them at the events. So
Yeah.
effectively, that was the win for me, just having a chat with loads of authors. And we had a guy who came along to one of our events, a guy called Bobby Seagull. Now, some of you might know Bobby. He's a maths teacher in East London, but he's also sort of well known for being on University Challenge. He's on the news quite a lot, talking about, and he's got a documentary talking about, you know, innovation and stuff like that. He's a really, really good guy, really fun, interesting, intelligent guy. So absolute honour to introduce him at this event. And I took Charlotte, my oldest daughter, along to come and see him speak. And interestingly, he was talking about his experience as a teacher and how fundamentally different students were with a growth mindset. I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to develop, compared to a fixed mindset, which is, you know, I am intrinsically either clever or unintelligent. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because you always assume that if you tell your kids they're clever, that's a really good thing, when in actual fact, it moves away from that attitude of going, you need to put the work in and you need to continue to learn, develop and grow to grow as an individual. So I think my growth mindset came from what I try and teach my kids, but then it comes over into the business as well.
Yeah, and you know, growth just does not automatically happen. You know, if you think about the systems, you know, like the primary school, secondary school, university, creates a framework for growing or learning, right? And most people, when we finish our education, in whichever form, there's no process anymore. So we've got to be intentional about that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have good intentions, but good intentions is not going to take you where you want to go. Only good actions, right? So having a growth mindset is also you need to be intentional and take action towards that. And actually having an environment where you create that within the organization actually helps other people and start taking action towards that as well. So that would be advice number 2.
I mean, we've got a bit of a phrase that gets bandied about by, I think a client said it to me once, and I really love it. Every day's a school day. You know, every day we're trying to sort of help, you know, learn something that's going to help us, our clients, you know, just develop and grow, and just never stop sort of learning and developing. I suppose one of the challenges you've got, and you've alluded to it already, is yes, business leadership, you know, is important, but it's really difficult if the business leader doesn't work on their self. So where do you, if you think that you need to do more in that area, or you're on a journey where you're thinking, I've probably neglected this for too long, where does that start? And what top tips have you got for starting that journey of self-discovery and self-learning?
Yeah, another great question, Chris. Well, you should be a coach, you know.
So thank you, mate. Look, if the day job didn't keep me as busy, I mean, you know what? This is great for me because I get for a living, and we do this with our clients and with amazing people like you. I just get to be curious for a living, the same as you do, and it's an honour because you learn as much as you learn as much as you get from these relationships. So share. Let me know. Tell me.
Indeed. So it's great, right? Because, you know, where do you start? I think most people say, or Martin, can you give me a plan for how I'm going to grow? Now, what I would say is actually, if we understand the laws of growth and we start there, actually, you're going to get a plan, but you're also going to enjoy the journey. And I know we're perhaps going to talk about books later on, but one area to start with, which I would recommend, will be reading the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth by John C. Maxwell. Now, for me, that is the handbook for personal growth. Actually, starting there and understanding some of the laws of growth is a great place to start, because that would help you see different aspects of the growth journey that you would need to take in. Then obviously, things like understanding yourself, the assessment we talked about, understanding yourself is an area where I start with most people to actually understand yourself. Because when you understand, the awareness of yourself actually helps you not try to be a Chris, not try to be a Martin, not try to be someone else, right? And understanding your motivations and what motivates you to grow as well. Because that's equally important, because we all learn differently and we all grow differently. But I would say starting with the 15 laws of invaluable growth will be the number one step. In fact, from time to time, I run a mastermind on the book, The 15 Valuable Laws of Growth, which, from time to time I run that. And actually just people coming on board that are going through the book, studying on the book, and actually pulling out insight from the book. So, so powerful. That's helped lots of people. But from an advice perspective, I would start there.
15 Laws of Personal Growth by John C. Maxwell. A book that I've read recently, because you actually gave it to one of my team. And when they were finished, apparently they read it in a weekend. When they were done, I read it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I suppose one of the big factors, as you say, you can't, and we see that it's a decent amount, there's a societal expectation of what success looks like. And sometimes people go for that. Whereas what one of the things that I got from the book is how important your own personal values are, and going on your own journey to make sure that you build what success looks like for you. How does that look in reality when you are helping and supporting a client to get there, if they've never done that work around values?
So in one of the things we do as a leadership coach and a personal coach, one of the areas we start with is actually obviously understanding yourself. And as part of that, your whole values chain and what success means to you, we help define that. Most people don't progress to where they are because of either experience, mentoring, or coaching. So in those areas, actually not experience and getting some of those knowledge, having a bit of mentoring, but also coaching for performance, which is kind of where we come in. And I think those components becomes part of that creation of how people could actually start growing. Now, in terms of simple things that we do, we look at assessment on yourself, understanding you. Then we look at the direction that you want to take, it's actually starting with the end in mind. It's actually where do you want to get to from your own personal journey, what's important to you, and that helps define the values. Then we have the coaching on the way around personal growth areas. We use it terminology of CLARE. CLARE is your communication, your leadership, and how you equip people, your attitude, and your relationships. Actually growing in these 5 areas is a framework to actually help you, in terms of your growth journey. So that's kind of how, we would walk through that process.
That's a really, really useful framework. And we've talked books a little bit, and I know I've left plenty of time for us to have a conversation about books, Martin, because I feel like we could talk forever on this. We were meant to have a conversation last Friday, weren't we? When I saw you, or the Friday before. And I didn't get the opportunity to chat, so I'm going to use this live broadcast just to talk to you about books, basically, mate. So 15 Laws of Personal Growth was great. What are the other key books that you'd always recommend for people to say that this is? I mean, it's interesting. You talk about that intentionality element. Before we start talking specifically about books, I find it interesting that, and I've been talking to a few people a bit about this, putting systems and processes into your own life to make sure you do the stuff you know is important. So one of the things that I do is I'm a member of a book club, business book club, where we get together once a month.
Right.
We just basically talk about a book, and the discipline of being part of the club, and the discipline of knowing that I'm reading and picking up, and I'll probably read a bit more than I need to, but picking up a business book every month means that I'm sort of habitually committed now to doing that. And that's been a really nice thing to do in terms of putting those frameworks in place to make sure that I carry on with the right habits. But apart from the 15 Laws of Personal Growth, what other books are you always recommending to your clients to read?
Well, great. So, and I love what you talked about around the book, the business group you're part of. One of the reasons why we fail most times, we have really good intention, is actually no accountability.
Yeah.
And actually being part of that group, like, actually makes you to account. Yeah, for actually 2 days to go. It's like, I've not read that book, and I'm gonna have to talk about that book. You're bound to read something, right? So that accountability structure is important.
Well, you know what's interesting. Like we work with smart, successful people who have built wealth, and you'd turn around and you'd say, well, why do they employ you? Why actually do they need a financial planner if they've done okay on their own? The reality is, and this is the same in your world, where you are and where you want to get to are always different, aren't they? So having that, having that extra support in terms of the next stage. Visibility is a big one. Visibility, helping them understand, what that looks like for them. But what I've realised, even though I'd never call myself a coach, but there's an element of coaching we do with our clients as part of a chartered financial planner's job. What I've realised is, even though we help and support people achieve their financial goals every day, there's elements of my life where I need help, and I've got to be conscious of saying, what accountability do I need to put in to make sure that I'm in a position where I can make sure that I'm doing that. One perfect example, and again, I'm going a little bit off topic here, Martin, but I promise I'll bring it back to books.
That is okay. That's all right.
I'm writing a book at the minute. So I'm writing a book based on a podcast I host with my daughter called The Kindness Project, where the idea of the book is taking the 4 years of podcast, 4 and a bit years of podcast interviews we've done, and sharing the insights about doing good in the world in the book from all of the amazing guests we've had. And that book's been sitting on my 40-odd thousand words, been sitting on my laptop for about a year to 18 months. I looked at it the other day and thought, if that never gets published, that'll be a real waste. I've spent all that time writing, and I'm in a position where I'm not going to use it. So I basically employed an editor, and when I phoned the editor and said, "Look, can you help me edit the book?" I said, "Can I be honest? Number one, I do need your help and to read through the book, so I've got a bit of an external perspective in terms of whether it's any good or what needs to change or improve. But I really need you to keep me on track." And she laughed and went, "What do you mean?" I went, "Well, to be frank with you, Leslie, this has been sitting on my laptop for a year plus, and I want to get it done. So your job is to effectively be my conscience about getting this done." And that's what she's been doing recently. So every now and again I get an email saying, "Is that job done yet? Is that job done yet?" And get smart at doing it. So that accountability in all aspects of our life, even for people like you and I who spend our lives helping other people, is really important, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We often get in our own way. We could see how we can help others, but actually we get in our own way. And sometimes we just need an outside influence, accountability, or a coach to help you through what you said you were going to do. One of the greatest joy of mine is really coming alongside my clients, where we've talked about this is what they said they were going to go do, and actually coming to a point where there's accountability, and actually how did we do about that, and actually learning how you're taking action towards that. We often don't move forward with what we said we were going to do, and that accountability structure just helps you in that journey. Now, you talked about the books. Now, Chris, as you know, there's just so many books. There's just
I just see your face light up when you start talking about books.
My goodness, where do I even start? But you asked a specific question around what are some of the go-to books. So I'll try to simplify that into just a few books. So key recommendation, obviously, being a growth advocate, the 15 Laws of Invaluable Growth. That is one book that is a must read. And so that's a book I would recommend. The other book, because I work with lots of leaders and those who are developing and those who are running lots of teams, is Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. It's really a book around, from your own leadership journey, actually developing yourself and that whole self-awareness of who you are, your strengths. Then another book I would recommend is Everyone Communicates, Few Connects. And if you see the pattern of what I've recommended, there is personal growth, your leadership, and your communication. So those 3 books are some of the books I use with helping my clients. So Everyone Communicates, Few Connect is really around how you can effectively connect with people when you communicate as well. So those will be the go-to books. Now, for leaders who have been leading for a while, a book that I would recommend is Developing the Leaders Around You. So there's Developing the Leaders Within You, Developing the Leader Within You, or Developing the Leaders Around You. So those will be, a few books I would recommend from a improving yourself, leadership, communicating with others, and connecting. Those things, again, if you look at the clear area I talked about earlier, there are books which links to those areas.
Perfect, and you've covered off at least 4 of the clear elements there, which I really like. What's the one thing you start with effectively when you're coaching somebody and helping them to just understand where they are at the minute? What questions would you ask, and maybe potentially our listeners and watchers should ask of themselves to just get that journey started?
So I guess one of the things we start with is starting with the end in mind, around this is you today, where do you want to get to, and let's work backwards from that. About the other bit, which with all my clients, I would go through a disc assessment with them, because that creates so much impact with the client, because you have more understanding. And most times, like, wow, I know this about myself, this was about, I didn't realize that's why I'm feeling that way. And actually, these are my natural areas of strength, which we've kind of known, but actually it's not clear. But I think those 2 things are so impactful at the start of that journey.
And that conversation, that assessment is a conversation starter, isn't it? Because it provides an insight that's independent of you just thinking about what you are, that allows that dialogue to happen with your coach and with somebody. Martin, where can people find out a bit more about you?
So if you go to martinoverare.com, you get more information about me. It will show what I do as a leadership coach, but also programs from a leadership perspective as well, and some of the programs we run. So if you go to martinoverare.com, that would route you to mine.
And who are you looking to connect with and help at the minute? Who specifically in your world is a good person for you to work with?
So it's a good question. Two primary areas, really. So developing leaders. I love working with developing leaders who are wanting to take that next steps, whether it's your promotion journey or actually improving yourself for promotion, but also just making yourself better overall. So that's one aspect. The other aspects, leaders who've been leading for a while, where they've been successful, but actually we talk about significance. Success is about you, generally. Significance is about others and what you're doing to develop other people alongside the journey. So those are the 2 areas where I'd love to get involved and help businesses, whether you've been running for a while or you're just starting, and how we can create that awareness for you.
It's so interesting, because when we've done the work with a client and we've worked out that either they are close or they've achieved financial independence, often the conversation starts talking about the purpose, giving back, helping others, all of that sort of stuff. And it's interesting how over our lives, we start off probably at the start of our careers going, success means just financial wealth, moving to a stage where we go, but actually it's a bit more nuanced than that, because even though it's important to have financial security, giving back is the element that we get the joy out of. It's really interesting. I'm doing some work with a leader at the minute, a client of mine, really amazing guy, who said, look, I want to carry on working, but what I want to focus on is helping kids get into engineering. He's helping kids get into engineering. So my what's next is definitely going to be looking at helping apprentices make connections with businesses who can support them. And actually, I think that really is aligned to his values, aligned to his experience, and allows him to use his knowledge and skills in a way that helps young people. So that sort of conversation is always interesting, right?
No, totally, totally. I think the whole area of significance is such an interesting area around actually or others. And actually, if we go back to the 15 laws of growth, there's the law of contribution, which talks about what you're contributing to others. Such a big impact, right? Because, like you say, you mentioned something at the start, is actually when you started as a business owner, you were not enjoying it as much. Now you're enjoying it more. So hindsight is a beautiful thing right now. Having to add value to other leaders who are on that journey. It's not just about yourself, it's about others. Because I really believe one of the reasons we do what we do is I really believe that everyone wins when a leader gets better. The leader's family will win, the work colleagues will win, your direct reports will win. Everyone wins when a leader gets better. So just coming alongside to add value to leaders is just one of the greatest honor
you
and
love to do.
Yeah, because they could add values to leaders and they could multiply values to others. So just love
it just flows down, doesn't it? That's the idea of doing it. Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really enjoyed chatting. As always, we didn't talk enough about books. So next time I see you face to face, we're going to have a bit more of an in-depth chat about books. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for watching and listening. We're going to put all of the books that Martin's, if you're not watching this live, but you're watching it on Catch Up, we'll make sure that all of the books that we've talked about and links to Martin's website and all of that sort of stuff come on the show notes so you can get in touch with us. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you next time on Cervello Live.
Great, Grace. It's been great being on the show, and I really loved spending this time with you. I look forward to our next conversation. Definitely lots of books to talk about.
Thanks, Martin.
Okay.